All right, thank you very much, Ali Shirazi, for such an insightful conversation and a great start of CONNEX 2025. So don't worry, I'm going to give them a test to see how awake and attentive they are. So ladies and gentlemen, can we all together give a round of applause to Ali Shirazi? Okay, no, I know this is great, but we need to make it even greater. So where is our amazing interpreter? Oh, she's on this side. So, I'm here to acknowledge Neda. She's going to be the interpreter for the whole day. So if you are really impressed by her commitment and dedication, can we all together clap for her in one voice? Listen, listen. The condition is in one rhythm, one synchronization. We have to clap all together for Neda. No, it's just a more energetic clap, but can we make it just one voice? Is there anyone who can take the initiative to bring all together at one synchronization, one frequency? Anyone? Okay. Excellent, excellent. Thank you very much, Nida, for being a great interpreter, and thank you for this initiative. So I have few freebies, giveaways. This is a book, incidentally written by my own self. It's called Markhor in the Search of Unseen. It's a fiction novel about a journey of 4 Stanford students who travel to Pakistan up in the mountains to find that Markhor animal. But for some reason, they cannot find that animal. But when they're leaving, they discover the Markhor within themselves. So anyone who wants to have a complimentary signed copy? Right, so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Binish already had one, right? So, okay, so I've got almost 20 people, right? So 20 log hain jo kitabein padhte hain. Rest we have moved to Netflix, right? So once again, how many of you need this free complimentary copy? Last chance. Okay, now we have better number. So you have got this, you have to pass this test. Our previous speaker, Ali Shirazi, he mentioned, and raise your hands, don't say anything. Raise your hand, I'll come to you. So can we have a mic for the audience? Mic for the audience. Can you confirm that Ali Shirazi mentioned about a Pakistani leader? Can you give us 1 minute account, a brief account of that Pakistani leader? Who was that? And tell us something more about that Pakistani leader. Anyone? Okay, I see from here. You want to give up for, okay. So Mike, please वहाँ पे mic pass करते हैं. I have a next question for the members.
Right.
As well. Yeah.
So it was about a leader जो गनी साहब के मुतालिक बात की and his vision and industrial revolution about Ghani Saab.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you very much. Your good name?
Ehsan Chima from Packages.
Ehsan Chima from Packages. This is your copy. Please, Ehsan ke liye clapping kar de. I can sign it for you later on. Okay, I have a second book, very quick announcement and a check. How many of you had been following PhD's socials today? Right? So I'm not going to give this book right now. So show me your active participation on socials. If you don't know how to connect, आपके tables के ऊपर QR available हैं, so you can scan and you can check. So kindly keep sharing this amazing experience you are having at CONNEX, so that I can share this book with you. So thank you very much, and let's move forward to our next segment. I'm here to invite an amazing speaker who flew in just now, because 15 minutes back I was asking Bisma if he has arrived, and luckily we have got the speaker arrived. Alhamdulillah, I hope jet lag is not going to hit you hard. So I've got with me Professor Ivo Vlaev. He's a professor of behavioral sciences at National University of Singapore. Previously, he has served at Warwick Business School, and Imperial College in London, holds his PhD in psychology from Oxford. So please welcome Dr. Ivo Vlaev to help us redefine the power of mindset. Over to you.
Thank you very much for this glorious introduction. Now, I better retire before I destroy the legend you just built. Hello, change makers. Well, you are change makers, and I'm a psychologist, a modest psychologist who helps people make better decisions and change their behavior. So I manipulate people for a living. But you don't need to be suspicious about me in this regard, because I only do it for better individuals, better organizations, and better society. We teach policymakers and managers to induce behavioral changes in their organizations, to improve their team performance, to enable organizational transformation, and to make happier society. I was trained as an experimental psychologist. I was not the smartest experimental psychologist at Oxford, but I was passionately curious experimental psychologist. I was curious about a very simple question. Why the bottle of human rationality is half empty? Why human rationality is half empty? Why sometimes we make worse decisions, irrational decisions, and why sometimes we don't act on our good intentions? Do you know what proportion of your good intentions translate into action? Less than 50%. There is something known as the intention-action gap. So you're here today to learn about strategy, about organizational transformation, about AI. I'm sure you come up with fantastic intentions. So do those who didn't act on these good intentions, the 50%. And what did we learn from human decision science? When I was back a blue sky scientist, I used to put people in a brain scanner, asking them to make decisions, and trying to understand what part of the brain lights up like a Christmas tree on Christmas night when they're making decisions. I was trying to understand the mechanisms of choice. And what we discovered was very simple truth. It's not the prefrontal areas of the brain responsible for rationality, consciousness, and cognition, and awareness, and reflection, but the subconscious areas of the brain responsible for emotions, instinct, and habit that light up when people are making good decisions. That's why we don't translate our good actions, good intentions into actions. And then later, I descended from a tower as a blue sky scientist down into the real messy world of policy making. I translated research into practice, trying to understand people in organizations and enable transformations. And I learned behavioral change interventions in every domain of life: health, environment, business, marketing, organizational change. And I'm not the only one who does so. Look at this beautiful map. There are more than 400 units in governments around the world that are engineering your life for you without you being aware. And non-governmental organizations such as United Nations, World Health Organizations, the World Bank, private companies are following through. More than 400 units are making your life easier to translate the good intentions into actions. And what is really more interesting, Pakistan is also there, we need to ask ourselves the simple questions. Why do we care about behavioral change? It's a no-brainer question. For example, in healthcare, 72% of death is attributable to non-communicable disease. Non-communicable disease largely attributable to modifiable behavioral, physical activity, diet, smoking, and alcohol. So we need to translate the intentions into actions. And if we go to the business world, very simple truth comes up. All transformation, whether it's implementing system redesigning, process driving, cultural change, or restructuring organizations, is ultimately about changing human behavior. This is Deloitte. Every private consultancy have their own behavioral change unit these days. And we need to understand what we can do with behavioral change, with influencing human action. Many of the most pressing challenges and opportunities facing organizations hinge more effectively on changing human behavior. We install new systems in place, people not using the systems, ways of working, days from home, days in the office. We need to do things differently. Diversity and inclusion. Women are underhired, underpromoted, underpaid as a result of their own behaviors and the behavior of their managers. Also, risk and compliance. If we don't change, if you don't comply with the rules and the guidelines, things go hairy for your organizations. Health and safety. Workers are not using protective equipment because they have to follow old habits. Cybersecurity. How many times you didn't change your password when prompted, and how many times you open these phishing emails? Billions are wasted because of failures in cybersecurity. So, what is the new science of behavioral change? It's the meeting of minds between economics and psychology, between different communities of scientists to try to understand how people make decisions. And what we discovered was a very simple truth. Majority of human behavior is not reflective. Only 20% of your actions that brought you to this chair today are rational, conscious, reflective, under your control. The majority of human behavior just comes about, it's not reflectively thought about. 8 out of 10 actions are responsible for your behavior in organizations as a result of fast-thinking process, a bit like this impulsive creature, Homer Simpson, acting on the basis of your very human, emotional, and fallible brain. So, what happens when you find yourself in a new environment is that you respond automatically to this environment, act on instinct and impulse, and then you make a decision. 8 out of 10 decisions are basically essentially automatic and subconscious, triggered by the environment. So what can we do, essentially, when we know this is the case? Well, very simply, what can we do? We can actually apply this knowledge. The new science teaches you how to influence human behavior in automatic and subconscious ways. Involuntary decision-making. Well, let's go through very quickly the traditional ways of influence. Incentives are one way of influencing decisions, and essentially providing information is the second big strategy we use in our organizations. We give sanctions, guidelines, resources, build infrastructure. We educate, we train people, and we also give them goals and plans how to achieve the goals. But this can only go so far. This can only go so far because, as we know, incentives and information does not bridge the intention gap. We practice behavioral science for millennia, forcing people, enforcing people, providing them with education, but only few of your good intentions translate into actions. And let me show you the power of the subconscious mind. If I ask you this question now, which of these squares is A or B is dark? What would you say? Any ideas? I believe that you say A is the dark and B is the white. Wrong! In fact, they're the same color because everything in our minds is very contextual and situational. Everything in our minds is situational. You immediately see the chessboard and your brain subconsciously infers, aha, B must be white, everything else is dark. And your brain very quickly infers there is a shadow here. That explains why B is actually darker than the white squares. It takes milliseconds. And if I suddenly cover everything around the squares, you see the squares in their real color. They're absolutely identical. You saw them now, you believe it's true. I only covered the neighborhood around the squares, but you cannot unsee it. So now, this is the real color. I'm showing you. You have no control on what your brain does. This visual illusion is the most famous visual illusion in the history of psychology, and it shows you the power of the subconscious mind. Everything is contextual in our behavior. Everything. Now I cover the neighborhood, and you see the squares in their real colors, but you cannot see them in the context in their real colors, even though you know consciously this is the case. So, the question then is, what can we do about human irrationality? And in 2008, there was a book published that took the world like fire. Nudge, Improving Decisions About Health, Wealth and Happiness, by 2 scholars. And the Nudge book had very simple truth in it. Instead of going against human nature, let's go with the grain of human nature. If people are irrational, unsubconscious, automatic, let them be. Let's trigger these automatic subconscious tendencies in our brain and influence human behavior in automatic and subconscious ways for the benefit of the individual. So nudging essentially is any change in the environment that changes your behavior in predictable ways. And Obama read the book overnight and threw it at his staff at the White House and said, please, I want more of that. David Cameron gave a very famous TED talk. Let's build a big society using behavioral insights. And they created the Behavioral Insights team. So let me give you 2 or 3 inspirational examples from the book to grasp your imagination now and wake you up with more pictures than words. Do you recognize this object? This is the very first nudge automatic influence in human history, the myth goes. I presume you think this is the very famous art installation by Duchamp in Brussels, the fountain, the pissoir. No, it isn't. It's a pissoir at Schiphol Airport, where a colleague of mine took a photo. So they had a behavioral challenge at Schiphol Airport. Men have a lousy aim. Ladies, many times at home, how often do you have to nag and pester your husbands and kids to actually aim better? Because there is an emotional cost. It stinks. And in public venue, Well, there is a financial cost. Somebody has to wipe the floor after the men. And what they did in traditional pissoirs and toilets in public venues, they put poster above the pissoir urging men to aim better, which doesn't work because maybe they're reading the poster and not walking down what they're doing. And very simple nudge, you can see on the screen, change behavior overnight. Can you see it? A fly etched at the bottom of the pissoir changed behavior overnight and reduced spillage by 80%. Simple truth. Men used to be hunter-gatherers for millions of years. Well, each time they have a tool in their hands and a target, they automatically aim the target. And each time they hit the target, they feel, I'm a warrior. The dopamine rush, they feel happy about themselves. Here we go, automatic. And what's the cost effectiveness of this intervention? It doesn't cost anything to draw a fly. No persuasion, no information, no incentives, no education. It works beautifully. Another famous example from the book that inspired generation is, can you recognize this place? Is the Lakeshore Drive in Chicago. There are cars driving here and they need to slow down before the sharp turnaround because they're wiping out, causing car accidents. Well, what the local government did at the time, they very simply put billboards, radio campaigns, wasted millions, no effect on the drivers. And then the behavioral team came with a simple nudge. You cannot see it on the screen. Can you guess what it is? It's the lines on the motorways. Lines on the motorways. And as you're getting closer and closer to the sharp turnaround, the lines are getting closer and closer to each other. So even though you're driving with the same speed, you're feeling that you're speeding up. And what is the knee-jerk response? Hit the pedal and slow down. And this is exactly what happened. And what we observed was massive reduction in accidents in the first 6 months of the event. So here's the Nobel Prize winner explaining the illusion himself.
So another domain in which we see nudges is in safety.
It doesn't work.
There's a beautiful road here in Chicago called Lakeshore Drive, and there's a dangerous S-curve right downtown where people are constantly wiping out. So what the city's done is painted lines on the road, and as you drive up to the most dangerous part of the curve, the lines are closer together, which gives you the illusion that you're speeding up, so you tap the brake and slow down, which is exactly what you want to do. You've been nudged.
Voila. Again, no persuasion, no education. And final example, can you recognize this object there? Probably you can. This is the power of cute. How cute images can melt the hearts of criminals and reduce antisocial behaviors. I was involved in this case with a
As
massive
the London riots of 2011 took hold,
advertisement
people in Greenwich
agency
burnt down the pub they drank
design
in
and
and
test.
looted the shops where they bought their food. But as the disturbances died down elsewhere, antisocial behaviour in the area continued. Greenwich Council needed to find a way to stop the problem minority from destroying their own community. We believed that the shop shutters that were ripped from their runners were part of the problem. Could we turn the shutters into part of the solution? We wanted to conduct a social experiment. In 2009, a team of scientists from Pennsylvania found proof that the large head, round face and big eyes so beloved of Disney actually motivates caring behaviour in adults. They proved that cute matters to the brain.
If I was in local government, I know it would be a lot easier to say I'm getting more police out there than to say I'm painting a few shutters. And I think we need to work to build confidence that these kind of interventions have their role, that they work and they have their role, and get them taken as seriously as hard interventions which are expensive and in the past have proven not to work.
Could the power of cute minimise antisocial behaviour in Greenwich? After a campaign to recruit babies from the local area and a long night painting, we turned the unused and inhuman metal sheets into giant portraits of Greenwich babies. As the shops shut at night, the metal shutters came down to reveal the babies when they were needed most. It had a powerful effect on the community, with an 18% reduction in crime, and locals who say they feel much safer.
If you've got positive images around, it makes you think positively.
They are amazing.
I think there should be more of it.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea, and it looks good.
And it didn't take thousands of pounds or hundreds of police. Just a few cans of paint. The people of Greenwich have shown an overwhelming love for the babies, and the shopkeepers have embraced the idea as their own. Before long, other communities all around the world, from Belfast to the Bronx, were talking about it too. What started as an experiment in London is now being rolled out in Northern Ireland this year. This could be the dawn of a new era in crime prevention.
Who would believe that the most vulnerable members in society will be guardians in society. Instead of installing security system on our doorsteps, now we need to put baby faces, and criminals will feel melted and nurturing emotions and wouldn't break into your houses. On a more serious note, I use the same intervention idea to reduce fly tipping and rubbish in public places. Wherever you see rubbish in London, we painted baby faces and the rubbish disappears. It goes around the babies, but overall, it's much cleaner there. So after these inspiring examples, essentially the whole world stood up and started clapping about behavioral insights. The books you can find at airports, every book was about behavioral insights and human psychology and the power of influence using some conscious techniques. The problem with these books was that they're full of factories, interesting stories about babies, about lines on motorways, about flies in pissoirs, or the face of disliked president, whatever men like to aim at, it was stuck at the pissoirs. But we didn't have a method, a tool that all of you can use to improve your organizational transformation. And I was hired by the Cabinet Office, by the British government 15 years ago, to essentially summarize all the knowledge about human instinct, about human heuristics and mental process that work in automatic ways. And they're very complex. There's so many brain faculties, attention, memory, thinking, evaluation, that are influenced by these subconscious mechanisms that had been used by advertisers and persuaders for centuries. And we discovered and grouped and classified all these mental processes in something practical everybody can use. All of you can just Google Mindspace now and you download the most popular report in British government for several years after it was published. It's free. Essentially it teaches you how to apply the design thinking, how we can redesign the environment to influence human choice in predictable ways. Mindspace was born. Essentially, it's an acronym. You need a sexy acronym to be popular these days. Summarizes everything we know about the human brain into 9 principles of influence: messenger, incentives, norms, default, salience, priming, affect, commitments, and ego. And you can start using it today, after the session. I'll give you some inspiring examples, and I'll shut up after that. Messenger. We are heavily influenced by who communicates the information. Not what the information is about, but who communicates the information. Somebody of high influence, somebody like you, somebody you have feelings for. And there are many examples that work in massive practical case studies on a big scale, such as this one by HMRC, the UK tax authority. All they did around Christmas, which comes out upon us in a few weeks, is they send Christmas greeting cards. Please don't be Scrooge, donate to charity, 3% of your salary. Jingle bells, all the jazz, electronic Christmas cards. As a result of this, essentially only 3% donated to charity. And the same card was sent to another half of the organization, and the only difference was a picture of your colleague who has already done it. And they more than doubled the donation. It's just somebody you don't even know, Mary, Jerry, Peter, but somebody like me has done it. Therefore, I must do it as well. Obama won the election. Why? Because he galvanizes the vote to go out and vote for the Democratic Party. How did they do it? With Zuckerberg, with Facebook, famous campaign that Trump may be using now. Traditionally, they send messages on Facebook, please go out and vote. There are 2 conditions. We like experiments in my trade. 600,000 in one condition, just go out and vote, and 61 million in another condition, which essentially did the same message, please go out and vote, plus picture of your friends from your network who have already voted. More than 2% went out to vote. Imagine on 61 million people, more than 2% going out to vote, and they calculate they can win the election simply by taking more people out of their bum seats. And you know, the complaints on middle classes who it's a bit rainy, I'm not going to go to vote today, maybe another day, and they won the elections. American elections are decided usually on a few hundred people, a few thousand people maximum. So you can see the massive impact. What about incentives? Our responses to incentives are shaped by predictable mental shortcuts, such as our emotional desire to avoid losses. It's known as loss aversion. We dislike losses more than we like gains of the same amount. Don't ask me why, it's complicated, but you can play on this knowledge. How? Well, let me show you a very good example how we can actually increase the productivity several-fold by simply using loss aversion. Very simple example. In America, across several schools, they want to motivate teachers to work better and harder, to educate their kids, to be better at maths. And in traditional organizations, what do? You give bonus at the end of the year, depending how well your workforce performs, which is traditional what to do with teachers in the US. But what if you give the bonus at the beginning of the year and tell them if they don't reach their KPIs, their goals, you're going to take it back. They have to pay it back. And look at the effect on kids. They had to solve 10 mathematical problems at the end of the year. When the bonus to the teacher was given at the beginning, 2 out of 10 must solve. When the bonus was given at the beginning and they had to pay it back, 7 out of 10 was solved. It's several times. Give the bonus at the end of the year if the teachers are doing a good job, or give the bonus at the beginning of the year and take it away if they're doing a bad job. We are loss averse. This is threefold. The same amount of money is paid on bonuses. But it works because we desperately try to avoid losses. Desperately. Another example is this beautiful app. It helps patients with chronic conditions to adhere to their medications. Traditionally, sick people, around 50% of them take their medication as prescribed. It's complicated with chronic conditions. Several pills at several times you have to take, and it's really tough. 50%. They managed to achieve 89% with a very simple trick. They give you $150 at the beginning of the month, and they prompt you at different times of the day to take a picture of your medication to keep $2 for the day. Otherwise, you lose $2 for the day. And patients are trying to avoid this loss. Here is the example. 8:30 a.m. Take a photo of your medication now to keep $2 for the day. Patient oblige. Takes a photo. It's an intelligent app, recognizes what the pills are at the right time, and awesome, sorry, it's an American app. And now they keep $2 for the day. And they run to adhere to their medications. It works like a silver bullet. If you do it several times, there is a big five from your kid. Baby faces always reward human beings at the end of the cycle. So, what about norms? Any useful norms in MindSpace? We are strongly influenced by what other people do. We follow the herd, even when we rationalize our behavior as a good idea. And we do it often subconsciously. So what can we do with this technique? Oh, it can do massive impact. Let me show you. At the beginning of the revolution, when we set up the first behavioral unit at the number 10 at the cabinet office with my co-author of the MindSpace report, David Halpern, we were given the task to bring taxes into the coffins of the exchequer. We needed more money, and it was quick one-off decision by people who have delayed their tax payments. And we added one sentence to the letter. And this was the most famous example in the history of organized nudging. Let me show you how did it work.
What other motivations do people have for paying tax? One thing that's really important is what other people are doing. The vast majority of people are paying their tax on time. So if we just told people that, told the people that are currently not paying on time, would that make people think, oh, hang on, I am in the minority, I should go on and pay taxes? And that's exactly what we did. There's a letter, people have an outstanding debt with the tax authority, we send them a letter saying 9 out of 10 people pay their tax on time. You know, you are in the minority that does not pay their tax on time. And then because we've got the data and we randomize, i.e. we send this letter I described to a randomly selected group, and the original letter to another randomly selected group, we can measure whether the sort of amended letter actually makes more people pay their tax on time, and indeed it does. Not only that, but we can go further. Okay, well, it matters to you what everyone in the country is doing, but really what matters to you is what your neighbors are doing, right? And this is a much closer social link. So we had another letter that said 9 out of 10 people in your local area pay their tax on time. Even more than that, we had 9 out of 10 people with a debt like yours pay their tax on time. And then the final, and this is the order of how effective they were, the final one, which was 9 out of 10 people with a debt like yours in your area pay their tax on time. This was the most effective. And that took about, so originally people who were receiving this letter, 33% or around a third still go on to pay their tax. And this increased it to 39%. This trial and a whole host of others in our first sort of batch of work with the tax office brought forward more than £200 million in the first 12 months. And that really gave us the momentum, and clearly raising tax is very important, but kind of gave us the momentum in other departments to actually go and try new approaches.
Who would believe £200 million just by adding one sentence in a letter that everybody gets? And most of the taxpayers are small and medium enterprises, private individuals, self-employed individuals. Here's the example. A simple letter, a boring letter that everybody gets. All we did it's another case study, we added a sentence. 9 out of 10 people in your country, in your postcode, or in your town pay their taxes on time. And we measure the effect. Which one do you think worked best? The traditional letter brought 67% of the recipients to pay their taxes. Now, is the country, is it the street, or is it the town? We don't know, until we run the randomized trial. And that's why I will urge you to experiment with your organizations with the mind space framework, with the techniques of influence. In fact, it turns out to be the town, people more affiliated with the town. They're not just following everybody else, but they follow people like them they identify with. This is part of the norms principle. You follow others, but we follow more others who are like you, who speak like you, walk like you. And this famous example was repeated around the world. In the US, they brought more than $200 million in 1 year. More than 200 million, just by adding these sentences. Therefore, in 2017, the Nobel Prize Committee, because of these examples, gave the Nobel Prize in Economics to Richard Taylor for discovering nudge theory. And this was one of the famous policy examples, and here is my article, cited in the letter supporting the decision to give the Nobel Prize to Richard Taylor. And this is how close I'm going to get to a Nobel Prize, being mentioned in a footnote in a letter about somebody else's Nobel Prize, but I don't complain. Every little helps in my career. So what is the lesson that we have now for you? The lesson is there is nothing more practical than a good theory. I'm going to repeat this statement. There is nothing more practical than a good theory. Acting without understanding is like having a hammer and not knowing where to hit with the hammer. Acting with knowledge turns action into wisdom. So my urge to you is, please, use science to understand your employees, to understand your customers, to influence for better organization, better strategies, because defining strategy does not mean the strategy will be implemented. Every strategy, every transformation depends on people doing things differently in small and big organizations and in the society as a whole. Thank you very much for the attention.
Can you join us on the stage? Yeah. Thank you very much, Dr. Ivo. This was quite insightful. I know this can't get justice for all your effort and commitment. You flew in all the time. But I believe there are a few nuggets that our fellows Pakistani professionals can take from your experience. So thank you very much for being with us. We have this little memento from PSTD to present to you. So may I request Mr. Ali Shirazi, on behalf of PSTD, to join us on the stage. Can you please join in the center to present the memento to our esteemed guest speaker. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you. This was worth a sleepless night on the flight coming here. I'll cherish it. I really appreciate it. I'm from Singapore now, so it took me about 20 hours, but here we go. I managed it on the last minute. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ivo.